Stray animals that roam the streets, especially cats and dogs, are a serious problem in many countries. It's difficult to rehome or feed them because of their large number, which makes for a depressing picture. On the other hand, very few countries face a comparable situation with regard to horses. In many regions, wild horses are a familiar sight, yet they are visually pleasing and self-sufficient. In the story we are about to tell, the horses are not as happy as they used to be. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. They were formerly used as working horses, but they are currently homeless. We'll be looking at an incredible rescue tale that is simultaneously tragic and endearing. Horses and donkeys were widely used for agriculture and transportation in Romania. Horse-drawn carts were still a regular sight in many Romanian cities because these animals were workhorses. In a nation where a large proportion of the population lives in poverty, owning a horse or donkey and a cart was far less expensive than owning a car. This still warrants careful thought. The only issue arose when they had to provide long-term care for the animal's welfare. In situations where families are struggling to meet their basic necessities, caring for an animal becomes considerably more difficult. Not everyone has the resources, even those with the greatest of intentions and a passion for animals. They would give the animals what they had, which might not have been sufficient to provide for their basic needs. Even here, in a very literal sense, the animals would be the ones carrying the greatest weight as they would earn some revenue from their own tiny companies with their cart. There are many worse stories than that. They are only the positive ones. Then Romania chose to support a new rule that the European Union had created in an attempt to outlaw the use of horse-drawn carts on public roadways. Anyone seen utilizing these carts on the road alongside other cars might face fines and perhaps jail time. The primary goal of this law's implementation was to ensure the safety of other drivers, but it was also enacted with the greatest of intentions to assist these creatures regain their rights. However, things didn't exactly work out as planned. Carts were not officially forbidden, although they could not be used on any roadways. It drove individuals to give them up, which many politicians had, to be honest, intended. But rather of being a means of providing support for these working animals, it made matters worse. Those who were already in financial difficulty were without a means of earning income for a spell. They didn't have the means to take care of their family, much less the animals that had previously provided them with a living. People who genuinely loved their pets were struggling as well. Horses were being left on the street in increasing numbers. For some of these owners, they were useless. It may have appeared as though giving up was a last-ditch effort to restore financial stability. That's the situation with one household. The Bozy family treated their horse with genuine affection. To make sure Kopek was taken care of and got at least some food, they would even go without. He would frequently have to eat less than what a horse ought to consume. But his family made an effort. This family's horse stood out from the rest as well cared for in a place when many others just didn't seem to care. They never put more than he could manage in the cart. They made sure he never had to experience the excruciating blisters that hauling a cart frequently brought. They took care to ensure that he slept in between workdays and was never overworked. To sum up, this was a decent family that made a sincere effort. Following the passage of the new law, their little business failed. All they had left was nothing. The father did go out and seek for a job, but it was difficult to find anything because so many other people were doing the same. And since a horse and cart had been their primary mode of transportation for many years, many of them, including the Bozy family, had no way to get to work. There was a lot to get used to. After a while, the husband did manage to secure a job, but the salary was insufficient to pay for the car he would need to drive to work. As best they could, they took care of Kopek, but the family still needed to feed. The children need attention because they were young. Kopek was getting thinner, and they were running out of time. They called every local shelter and veterinarian. Not only did they wish to leave Kopek behind, but they would soon be forced to do so. The response to such a major problem in the city was always the same. They were too crowded to accommodate another horse. They were too poor to adopt another animal. The family was inconsolable. Then they faced yet another setback, leaving them with very little alternatives. Their little boy was riding his bike to the nearby school when he fell. His leg was broken when he fell. What little funds they had left, whatever they had used up to that moment to take care of Kopek, would be devoured by the medical costs. He'd go hungry if they kept him around. They owed it to him to try and give it their all. This was a city setting. There were few spots where a horse might be placed and perhaps have some food available to him. At last, they discovered a large, grassy, open area outside of the city. Even a little creek meandered through it. It was a distance, and those who didn't give a damn about their runaway horses wouldn't look this far for a location to drop him down. The family brought him there, and they bid him farewell with broken hearts. They didn't know if it would be enough, but this was the best they could do for Kopek. They reasoned that he would have plenty to eat and drink at least here. There were even a few trees that offered some cover. There would be no way for the family to follow up with him. For them, covering that distance might make the difference between visiting Kopek and having dinner that day. To many of us, it might not seem like much. He didn't know how to manage it because he was on his own. Though there was plenty of grass all around him, Kopek had always been housed in a stable, which presented a challenge. For the most of his life, he was given hay because there weren't many green areas in the city. He ate very little since he was unaware that the substance he was standing in was food. He was unable to locate any familiar food, not even when he was really hungry. After days of despair, he may have eaten a few nibbles, but the green trees and grass were getting harder to come by. He took a sip of water from the stream, which gave him some more energy. However, he was unable to drink from the stream when he arrived there early one morning. Ice remained and not a drop of water. Every night he felt chilly, extremely hungry, and more thirsty. The life Kopek had known was not this one. People have adored him forever. Yes, he had gone without meals for a good number of years. There are even others who claim he had starved for years but never anything like, and he didn't know how to take care of himself anymore. It was a hopeless scenario. The horse was growing lethargic. He was not feeling well and was finding it difficult to stand anymore. It was getting dark and the chill began to creep into every part of his body. It felt as though he was immobile. Even though the night was lengthy, there didn't seem to be much heat when daybreak finally arrived. Kopek was nearly at the brink of surrender. He was hungry and freezing. He was prepared to give up entirely as he lay down on the chilly ground. Even a few more hours would have been all Kopek would have needed to survive, but right before he could shut his eyes. As he got closer, he heard voices approaching him. Some of them were familiar, yelling his name and racing in his direction. It was the dominant clan with a few others following. Those who were with them fed him right away and wrapped him in warm blankets. Tearfully, the family thanked the rescuers, saying they would never forget their horse and would always need help. Following a protracted wait, animal protection organizations came up to give assistance in an extraordinary rescue that took place in Romania. They overcame several obstacles and did everything they could to help Kopek recover his health. Their goal was to locate him a long-term residence where he would get excellent care. I hope you find this film enjoyable in the future. With the most distinctive eye characteristics, these two identical sisters were born in 2011 and became viral on the internet in just 4 years. It's time to find out what has happened to them since they gained international fame now that 8 years have gone. On June 6, 2011, Megan and Morgan were born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Stephanie Boyd and Lovell Knight, proud parents, could not have predicted at that very time that their 2 girls would become overnight celebrities on the internet. These parents had no idea how much their child would stand out in a crowd, even though it was obvious from birth. But Mom Stephanie had a sneaking notion that these girls were something else entirely. The item that their stunning black complexion and sparkling blue eyes distinguished them from the other infants in the hospital nursery. Dark-skinned people seldom have light eyes, but those who do are seen to be extraordinarily attractive. According to scientists, blue eyes first appeared thousands of years ago in an unidentified ancestor due to a genetic difference. At first, all eyes were brown. Black individuals still don't often have blue eyes unless, like the twins, they have some Caucasian heritage. They had an almost hypnotic quality about them, as many who saw them in person described being attracted in by their unusual and singular beauty. Stephanie, Mom was just another ecstatic mother wanting to brag to her friends about how adorable her daughters were. She began posting images of their everyday life on the internet for their friends, who then forwarded them to their own friends. Gradually, the virtual community, presently including both unfamiliar and intrigued individuals, began to expand. Nonetheless, the twins' fame continued to plateau. Then, on his social media profile, singer and tattoo artist Deontay Hunter shared a photo of them. Speak of being in the right location at the right moment and possessing the proper connections. Suddenly, everyone was checking out Stephanie Boyd's Facebook to see if any more true blue twin pictures had been added. Prior to being well known the two sisters were already well known in their hometown on the internet. Because of their eyes, their parents had begun referring to them as the True Blue Twins, and the neighborhood quickly caught on. Stephanie and Lovell would have been quite wealthy by now if they had a dime for each childhood snapshot of the daughters. People wanted to snap pictures of the exceptional girls everywhere they went. Despite being identical, their distinguishing characteristics have a slight twist that helps set them apart. Morgan, Megan's sister, has one blue and one brown eye. But Megan has two amazing piercing blue eyes. This disorder is referred to in medicine as heterochromia, when things occurs differently throughout the formation of each eye, and the genes inherited from the parents have varying effects on each of them. Although there are differences in eye color due to this disorder, vision issues do not arise. Both Mother Stephanie and the paternal grandpa of the twins have blue eyes. Even more intriguing are Megan and Morgan's great-grandaunt and uncle, who were similarly endowed with one blue and one brown eye. Morgan feels different from the rest of her family since she shares the same eye combination, but it also keeps her from feeling like an outsider. The benefit of this unique eye characteristic is that it makes things simpler for individuals to discern between the two females who were identical twins. Stephanie has always led an independent life and profession. She had worked as a plus-size model and social media influencer for some time, so she was well-versed in the workings of both the modeling and social media industries. It came as no surprise then when she took over as account manager of her children's Instagram. They currently have over 821,000 followers on their account. Their YouTube channel has almost 61,000 followers, demonstrating its immense popularity. The first video on this channel was uploaded in 2013. The videos that are uploaded depicting Morgan and Megan's daily life are still quite popular. There are scenes in these films when the females are learning things. However, you may observe them dancing, doing crafts, or styling items from their own closets. For their social media profiles to get more traction, other social influencers even began to create material about the ladies. Because Stephanie was preoccupied with being a mother, she exploited other people's work and just shared it again on the internet. Even the seasoned model was taken aback when one video received over 6.6 million views. Naturally, these ladies received a ton of invitations as soon as they were prepared to enter the modeling world. After the twins began a lucrative modeling career with several sponsorships, they gained recognition as micro-influencers, which led to marketers want to collaborate with the family for exposure. Although Stephanie was pleased with her girls' achievements, she faced a lot of criticism for the decisions she made. Many people support letting kids just play and enjoy their youth instead of putting them under so much strain. A useful way to assess whether modeling is beneficial for a youngster is to look at their level of happiness on a daily basis. Parents should take attention if their child consistently refuses to take part in the activity that is making him or her renowned. Stephanie claims that Megan and Morgan exhibited a genuine love for what they were doing and a strong desire to be shot every day. If their notoriety stems from their physical attributes and they hear about it every day, given their beauty, kids are prone to being conceited and haughty. Therefore, it is commendable that despite all of their celebrity, Megan and Morgan's parents have managed to keep their daughters grounded and modest. Lovell and Stephanie both made a determined effort to highlight qualities and personality traits that the girls should strive for, such as compassion and intellect. Given how quickly these two children are maturing and getting closer to adolescence, it is critical to consider the future. They ought to use the money they earn from their social media profiles and picture sessions to fund their further education and personal growth. Being able to launch their own business at such an early age is something this a unique family for which there should be gratitude and careful management. But Megan and Morgan won't ever have to worry about their future, financially speaking, with parents like Stephanie and Lovell. You might be curious about the girls' current appearance and the events over the past few years. In about a year, the True Blue twins, who recently turned 12, will be teens. But have they continued to be as stunning and lovely as newborns? Do they still have fun modeling, or have they decided to pursue something else? It's possible that many of you already knew that these amazing twins will only get more gorgeous. The girls are old enough now that they candlelight in their Instagram account even more and provide their own suggestions and ideas for posts. They adore fashion, just as most girls do, and they're beginning to add unique touches to their wardrobe selections. They're beginning to play around with cosmetics and attractive hairstyles, but they still like modeling and posing for photos. They believe that they will pursue a career in fashion, just as their mother did, and judging by the way things are going, they will be ideal for their position. Additionally, their uniqueness is beginning to come through. Despite having identical features and being identical twins, they are still two distinct individuals with unique personalities. Their distinct eyes made it easy for others to distinguish between them, but nowadays they also know what each of them loves and hates, so they are no longer seen as a whole. They possess numerous physical characteristics and the same Instagram account, but they have diverse hobbies and will most likely pursue occupations other than modeling when they are older. In addition to being active on social media, Megan and Morgan Boyd are employed as fashion models in the cutthroat world of fashion. They have a lot on their plates, even if they are still in school, and they all grin congruently. Since their birth, the True Blue twins have swept the globe and show no signs of slowing down. How do you personally feel about kid modeling? Do you believe that parents who want to make money on Instagram should post details of their daily life there? Furthermore, should a child even be the focus of a social media profile? Leave a comment below to let us know. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you later. During a single journey to Mexico, Danny Boulder, a resident of Houston, Texas, came across a stray kitten that was in poor condition. He decided to bring it to the United States against the advice of the locals in the hopes of bringing it back to health. But Danny soon realized he had made a serious mistake when two police officers knocked on his home a few days later. When Danny first met the kitten, he was visiting a tiny community in Mexico as part of a solitary holiday. It has filth all over it from clearly quite frail. He was living on the streets. Given that the kitten didn't appear to have a mother around, it appeared to be an orphan. For a time, the kitty continued to follow him. He saw that a little busier roadway demanded greater attention as he moved in that direction. Taking the kitten to a shelter was his initial idea. Danny started to approach the beast, but the neighbors' yells in Spanish stopped him cold. How did they put it? Locals kept shouting at Danny to keep his hands off the little cat as it progressively drew closer and closer to him while he stayed still. The cat was now scrambling onto Danny's boot, and he concluded for himself that these people were probably simply playing tricks on him, since they all enjoyed tricking outsiders who came to their community. Then it occurred to him that perhaps they should keep the kitten for themselves, so the animals could eat it. The locals let out loud shouts as he scooped up the animal with care and speed and began walking back to his car. Danny got behind the wheel without a plan for where he was heading. Danny had become utterly enamored with this small creature during the entire affair. The shouting and all the vague warnings from the villagers had already faded from his memory and were pushed to the back of his mind. When he felt like it was his goal to save and resurrect this magnificent species, the kitten appeared to come back to life after eating and drinking. Driving non-stop for over a day was required to return home to Houston, Texas. He would shortly be crossing the border. Upon clearing the border post, Danny was immediately questioned about the cat. He informed them that there wasn't really much else to say and that he was exploring the globe with his cat. The border guards exchanged a few quiet words, but Danny was given the all-clear to continue driving quickly. Danny was happy to be able to carry on with his quest to get his animal companion to where he thought to be her permanent residence. It seemed like a dream come true for him because he had always wanted a pet cat. It eventually became apparent, though, that this would not be the case. Danny wasn't a moron either. Upon realizing that a stray cat would potentially harbor many diseases, he made the decision to schedule a visit with the veterinarian upon returning home. Luckily, Danny was able to visit the veterinarian right away the next day. He had to up early since he had the first appointment of the day. He was up early, but because the kitten would not allow itself to be captured, he was still practically late. Danny realized why the cat was escaping him as soon as possible, thought he ought to give her a name in the interim. He made up his mind to refer to her as Missy going forward. After a while, Danny discovered her behind the sink, barely having time to get to their veterinary appointment. He was surprised to observe that in contrast to yesterday, Missy appeared to be much less keen to be lifted up. He would soon find out why. Possibly because to her increased strength and heightened survival instincts, Danny was almost bitten each time he attempted to seize her. He appeared to even hear her snarl. Something Danny had never encountered before. Then it dawned on him what may be useful. Using some gloves as support, they went to the veterinarian after he was able to place her in the former cat's cage. The veterinarian advised Danny that it would be best to sedate the kitten when he arrived. In this way, he could look inside her without risk. The veterinarian wondered how the frail kitten would respond to the injection, as Danny said that he had taken the cat from the streets. Given Missy's apparent weakness and malnourishment, the veterinarian concluded that administering an anesthesia may potentially be fatal. The veterinarian was left with no choice but to open Missy's cage and free her, but as soon as he approached her, she stung him. Now what? Following a discussion for After a while, Danny and the veterinarian concluded it was time for Missy to return home. Danny was given the task of helping her get stronger over the next 4 days so that she would be prepared for sedation. Danny felt a little let down by the outcome, even though he had brought the cat home. The veterinarian's plans to do something else made the situation more worse. The veterinarian had withheld certain information from Danny because he feared what might happen if he confronted him. He believed that telling him such things wasn't his place. For this reason, the veterinarian picked up his phone and informed the authorities so they could handle this animal. The veterinarian never meant Toto check Missy. He immediately recognized that something was not right from the time they went through the door. He exploited Missy's frailty as an excuse to get Danny out of the clinic so he could contact the police and let them sort things out. On the drive back, Missy eventually calmed down. Danny was even able to pet her a little bit. It was at that time when Danny assumed everything would turn out well. But would it? Unknown to Danny, everything was going to get a whole lot worse than the situation was. Danny was peering out of his window when he noticed a police cruiser with 2 cops drive up in front of his house. He instantly observed that they didn't arrive to chat in peace. They were truly seeking for something. They ran to his porch and began to pound on his door in haste. Danny became astonished by how forcefully they were hammering on his door. Danny opened the door and started to greet the police officers, but before he could say anything, he was shoved aside as the policemen surged in. Danny was astonished for a second and couldn't comprehend why all this was occurring. While searching, one of the police officers exclaimed that they were hunting for the monster. What did they mean by that? All Danny could think of was that they had come for Missy. But how could they possibly know the cat was in his house, and much worse, why is she referred to be a monster? Missy had already showed her inquisitive face before he could respond to their accusations. One of the cops cried out, "There it is!" The cops pursued her right away. When the cops arrived, Missy was eventually captured. Missy was clearly not in agreement and was acting out in the net she found herself in. Well, at least there's some serenity back in the home now. Danny was curious as to what in the world was happening. The officer informed him that they were only carrying out orders and that they too had no idea why they were at this place. All they knew was that Danny should definitely give the local veterinarian's recommendation a call for some clarification. Hold on, what? Did the veterinary contact the police? Danny called the veterinarian right once as the cops were loading Missy into the car and placing her in the cage. The veterinarian saw right away that Danny had brought with him a juvenile Mexican bobcat that was endangered, something he should never have in the first place instead of a sick kitten. The veterinarian believed Danny had obtained the animal illegally since Danny had failed to disclose to him that he had found it in Mexico. The veterinarian wanted the police engaged primarily for that reason. In addition, the veterinarian thought it would be best to report such unlawful matters to the authorities rather than risk getting into a fight. That days later, Danny was summoned to provide an explanation for how he got hold of the bobcat. The cops took his real account seriously, even if it seemed a little unbelievable. They searched his home and discovered no proof of illicit activity. Therefore, they made the decision not to file any more accusations against him. The bobcat was given to a rescue organization, which planned to return it to Mexico after allowing it to mature for a year or two. Experts are astonished by the creature that divers discovering a Siberian lake discover. Everybody has heard tales of a lake monster from different parts of the globe. People have always believed that evil entities reside in the lake regardless of where they dwell. Reports have included anything from the Loch Ness Monster to demons. A lot of individuals believe that a monster from the lake is ready to devour them or their family. On the other hand, a few really courageous humans have sought out these deadly animals. They remained around the lake till late at night in an attempt to discover what grotesque animals could surface. Some have ventured further and launched boats in an attempt to locate the creatures that are hidden beneath the surface. One of the most well-known legends originated in Lake Labinkar, Siberia, in Russia. It's been around since the 1800s and has long both baffled and fascinated people. Situated in the Sakai Republic, the lake is a part of the largest and coldest area in Russia. The world's deepest dive under icy water and ice took done at this precise site. The Russian Geographical Society and the Diving Sport Federation collaborated on the mission. Since they were scientists and well-versed on the various species present in the lake, they weren't specifically searching for a monster. Still, they were interested to see what they might uncover. The air temperature was as low as -50 degrees Celsius for the dive, which will descend 59.6 meters. The dive would swiftly become lethal if the divers lacked extreme experience. Samples from the lake would be collected in an attempt to establish a connection between Lake Labinkar and Voronezh, a comparable lake located around 30 kilometers distant. Each lake was extremely deep, had bitter cold temperatures, and was the subject of malicious rumors. Before the trip, the Society issued a statement saying, "The participants of the expedition want to check those legends about Lavinkar's sky chert, the Lavinkar Devil, a huge monster supposedly living in the lake, in addition to plans to set up a new record for under-ice diving and to perform scientific research." Releasing a statement immediately following the dive was Dmitry Schiller, one of the team's most seasoned divers. "We are acquainted with the works of the scientist Viktor Tverdokhlebov, who in Soviet times gave credence to the monster claims about Lavinkar Lake. Of course, while we were there, we were thinking about that creature. Although we all know that mirages, which resemble floating islands, are widespread in any northern region with a lot of ice and snow, Lavinkar is not unique in this regard. This gave many people the impression that they had seen something in the lake that may have been the monster that has been mentioned. As information regarding the dive became available, other speculations about the creature surfaced. Some believed it to be a dinosaur, some were positive it was the devil, and the more prudent speculated that it may be a type of fish that hasn't been found in deep water. President of the Vologda Regional Diving Federation and lead diver on the Lavinkar expedition, Alexander Gubin, remarked, "My pictures show what we saw, dogfish. Actually, I took pictures of these dogfish in Lake Lavinkar not too far from the shore. There too, the depth was just 4 or 5 meters. Together with Maxim, another diver, we were only investigating the area around the banks. The dogfish had a length of between 1.2 and 1.3 meters. Though nearly every species in Lavinkar is this size, it is rather large for a dogfish at a depth of 10 to 12 meters. I observed 2 additional fish just like these. These were the largest animals I encountered at Labinkar. However, I am aware that 2-meter-long salmon troutfish may also be found there. I assume the stories about the monster originated from some large salmon troutfish that may have puzzled the natives. The salmon trout is a very powerful and energetic fish that can travel quickly through the water and even leap a little. From a distance, one may easily assume that something enormous is moving close to the water's surface. Many questioned whether this was the nature of the creature. Maybe Gubin had seen with his own eyes a species of dogfish that had not been officially discovered. But Gubin was fast to refute this, saying, "We didn't see anything big in Varota either. Though I am a realist, I am aware of those legends about the monster. Since there was undoubtedly insufficient food in the lake for a massive dinosaur, I was diving without any weapons. Actually, my primary weapon is my camera. I wonder whether my camera's telescopic lens, which acts like a genuine weapon, makes me feel safer. But I'm a bold man all around. I've stood near to crocodiles and had a tiny shark bite my camera in the Cuban Caribbean." Gubin continued to describe what he had observed and investigated when questioned more about it by the media. The lake is 14.3 kilometers long and 4 kilometers wide, with an average depth of 52 meters, but it has an unusual underwater fissure which reaches down to 80 meters. It is located in the same Sakura Republic area as Oymyakon, also referred to as the Pole of Cold, the world's coldest human habitation, around 5,000 kilometers east of Moscow. The Soviet geologist Tver Dokhlebov visited the lake during the Stalin period, lending credibility to reports of the monster or demon that date back to the 19th century. About the devil, he wrote, "Numerous theories have been put up on the type of creature that may exist. An enormous pike, a fossilized reptile, or an amphibian. We were unable to validate or invalidate these versions. We were able to uncover animal bones and jaw remnants." During a visit to Labinkar, Lyudmila Emelianeva, an associate professor of biogeography, used sonar readings to document a number of extremely large submerged items. She is not the lone researcher who has taken this action. It had been almost forgotten about Lyudmila's story of the lake monster until Gubin's interview. People were much more certain that there was something strange in the lake when her interview became public. "Our echo-sounding device registered a huge object in the water under a boat on our 4th or 5th day at the lake," she claimed. "The thing was above the bottom, quite thick, and had a homogeneous structure, certainly not a fish or school of fish. I was astonished, but not alarmed or outraged. Ultimately, we simply observed an odd thing in the water. We did not really see this animal. But as a scientist, I can categorically state that I am unable to provide you with an answer as to what this item may be at this time." She was persuaded that there was more than one enormous live item in the clear waters once the readings were repeated. "While I can't say that we actually found and touched anything unusual, we did detect several very large underwater objects, bigger than fish or even a school of fish, with our echo-sounding device." What then lies under the lake? Did the group notice anything more? The tale became increasingly surreal as more information became available. When questioned about the depth of the dives, Dmitry Schiller elaborated on the narrative. Some speculated that because the monster only needed to surface occasionally to breathe, it wasn't regularly sighted. "We conducted many dives at varying depths, both from an open-air platform and an ice tent. We went deep diving for one night at each lake. We made many diving-ready ice holes. Water samples were collected at various depths. We collected around 20 samples and performed nearly 200 distinct measurements in all. We were able to go down as far as 59.6 meters. Labinkar is 30 kilometers away from Varota Lake. The experts believe there may be underground tunnels and that the lakes are connected. In an attempt to comprehend the distinct hydrosystem of these locations, we also had to collect some samples from Varota. The scientists asked us whether we could make it and reach the second lake because they had never had the opportunity before. Schiller was more fascinated by their cutting-edge technology that linked the two lakes. For fans of monsters, though, that indicated there was a gateway connecting the two and the monster could descend to such a depth without being seen. What lay even deeper if there was a doorway connecting the two lakes? If divers descended far enough, would they discover that every lake was connected? Though he talked particularly about the two lakes he had been studying, Schiller did consider this notion. The fact that both lakes had the same water level lends credence to this theory, which got us to considering the possibility of joining watercraft. The scientists at Accoution are really appreciative of our samples. In 3 months, they pledged to update us on the findings. Although it appears that there isn't much food in those lakes, I know they are eager to investigate the living things that can endure in such circumstances and to find out what the fish are consuming there. We were eager to locate the fissure said to lie near Lake Labenker's bottom. We might have attempted to delve farther in this instance, but regrettably we were unable to locate it. Perhaps we should take up this duty on our next trip to Labenker. Many were curious as to the specific reason the crew decided not to further their inquiry. Ultimately, it was highly costly, and the extremely low air temperature conditions, and they were just not combining properly. Thus, in response to the question of whether or not we encountered the Lavenkier monster, I respond that combining those gases was in fact my monster. A fatality would have resulted from my mixing error. We were able to descend to 80 meters while practicing in the chilly White Sea. Although there were always challenges, we handled them admirably. There were no emergencies during dives into Lavenkier Lake, but the mood seemed off. We were all fretting. For instance, once the hoses became intertwined. There was a time the wind was so fierce the tent over the ice hole was almost swept away. What are your opinions on this then? Was it a dogfish, a monster, or some other kind of animal? Tell us in the comments below. We are eager to learn about your theories. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.